the great thing about being in a band is you have the freedom to do anything you want. I never wanted to turn my back on the intimacy that you get from a crowd. I mean, I love playing arenas and I love playing stadiums, and that shit is amazing. But to this day, we will always play venues where we can get as close as we can to the audience. Like I always say, you follow the music, and where the music was taking us was to something bigger.
Here we go again. Infatuation just scares me just when I thought that it would end.
The early 80s scene that I was involved in, you know, we called it hardcore. It was hyper-violent, it was extremely transgressive. The sound coming out of LA was a real California sound, and I'd say that the sound coming, you know, from the East Bay was almost more of a British sound.
The birth of punk in the Bay Area happened in San Francisco, and there was this kind of rise in nationalist, skinhead, racist kind of stuff going on.
When I first came to San Francisco, it was all hardcore bands. There was no melody going on whatsoever. And when you went to a show, it was dangerous, and you were most likely going to get beat up.
Punk had assimilated some of the things that I didn't like about metal. All the attitudes, though, being violent and aggressive and that sort of thing, I really didn't like that. To me, it was more like, this has got to be fun.
During the really early punk days, that scene took its toll and it ended. In the late 80s, it really started to go across the bay into where we're from, in the East Bay. It probably has more in common with Kansas. For the most part, I really liked growing up in Rodeo. I think there were some times where it sucked because it was so boring.
I didn't have a record store in my hometown ever. I had a little cassette player, a little boombox about yay big, and I would get cassettes and demo tapes and stuff, but that was really the high point of my musical collection. You know?
The first conversation we ever had was about music in the school cafeteria, and we were 10 years old or something like that. We sort of bonded over, you know, listening to just heavy rock music, AC/DC and early Van Halen and Rat.
And the big transition for me was Kill 'Em All, Metallica. Loved Cliff Burton's bass playing. At that time, I think I was just discovering who the other punkers were in my neighborhood or other weirdos and freaks. And I mean, I would spot them from across the street at the bus stop, and I go, hey, I bet that person would be my friend.
We were growing up. We started gravitating towards alternative and punk rock music. The first time I went to a show, I went to go see my friend's band play at Gilman. They were called No Dogs. And I was 15. There was so much like chaos and camaraderie. People were weird, people were nerds. I just kind of felt at home.
The East Bay punk scene emerged out of necessity. You look at a lot of old punk photos and everybody looks so cool, right? If you look at the early East Bay punk scene, there's no costume. They just look dorky and frumpy, and there's this sense of fun about it. The Bay Area needed a place like Gilman. It was a reaction to the climate of racism and corruption that had been happening in the punk scene. It was a place to come together without fear of getting beat up or ripped off. People needed a forum where they could come and feel like they could express themselves in a safe environment. And Gilman filled that void.
Gilman Street as a venue was like legendary to me and to my other friends. It was like this mythological place, you know, like that you didn't even really know how to imagine, because like you had spent so many hours as a teenager thinking about what it must have been like to have been a punk in the Bay Area punk scene, you know?
Gilman's like a set from an 80s movie where all the punk kids hung out. You see years of graffiti. On a good day, you don't smell the bathrooms there. The rules of Gilman, as they stood 30 years ago, are basically the same rules as they stand today.
All volunteer run, all ages.
No drinking, no drugs, no substances, no homophobia, no racism, no sexism.
No transphobia, no dogs, only because the sound will hurt their ears. Gilman loves dogs.
People can come there and just feel free to be themselves, and a place where you can let your freak flag fly. You know, it's beautiful.
You know, I'm an atheist, but it's like entering a church, the closest to me to entering a church.
It's probably the only place in the world that we played and weren't drinking on stage at the same time. I mean, what a bummer. I remember the first show there, like our third song, someone threw the basketball and it just hit me right in the nose. Oh, so this is Gilman Street.
I was absolutely blown away. I mean, I'm getting chills now just thinking that was a life-changing moment. I can remember just looking and going, holy fuck, there is nothing like this. This is unbelievable.
That's fine.
If you were a kid in the East Bay and wanted to have a band, Gilman was a shining thing that you could look at and say, maybe we could play there.
We started Sweet Children like right around 1987. I wrote a song called Sweet Children.
Sweet children, sweet children, sweet children, will never react.
I played it for Mike, and we sat down and started kind of figuring out the arrangement together. Then more songs kind of kept coming, and that's pretty much how it's always been.
Billy might come in with a song fully written. He might come in with a song and we hash it out together, or say, I got this piece, and I'll say, I got something that goes great with that.
Mike's strength is just, you know, he's a natural, and he's dedicated as a bass player and as a musician. He plays every day, and he has a pure love for music.
Billy's a very strong songwriter. When everybody was focused on being the greatest guitar player in the world, he found a conscious decision to focus on songwriting. Billy has a lot to say, and always has. For him, it's been a journey to get those things out.
Staring out of my window, watching the cars go rolling by.
There was times where we would drive out to places like Christie Road and with an acoustic guitar and have a bunch of friends meet us out there with a couple 12 packs of beer, and we considered that a show. It just kind of became like this little monument for all of our friends to go to. We used to go out and smoke dope and drink beer, and it was by the railroad tracks. It was really kind of picturesque. Those were the best times.
Give me something to do to kill some time.
We used to like go Volvo surfing. Like our friend had this like 70s Volvo with a roof rack on it. So we used to get on top of it, and he would drive as fast as he could, and we would be on top. It was just like, we could have ended up dead many times. But it was a great place, and it was worth writing about, that's for sure.
Take me to the tracks at Christie Road.
Yep. Trying to get a gig was like the hardest thing in the world. You felt like giving up because you couldn't play anywhere.
The whole scene was DIY. Bands would book their own shows. They would book their own tours.
If no one's going to put out your record for you, put it out yourself. If you don't have anywhere to play, make your own venue. Play in a basement, play in a garage.
That's what Timmy Hannon really started, was the DIY ethic. He was an old Arab dude that was super punk rock and communist. Was he even an Arab? Am I making that up?
Tim Yohannan was the founder of Maximum Rock and Roll magazine, and he decides to put the money into opening Gilman Street. Billy Joe got Tim Yohannan's number. He gave him a call and had given him his demo tape. Said, I'd like to play Gilman. And Yohannan said, it's too pop.
I just think he wanted to keep things pure and as punk as possible.
Timmy Hannon was, the politically correct side of punk rock. He would not let certain labels advertise in Maximum Rock and Roll. And he had a radio show, and he would talk hella shit about skinheads, and that's why he didn't go out to shows. I did see him at Sizzler twice, surprisingly. I went to Sizzler twice in my life in San Francisco, and Timmy Hannon was there both times.
They didn't want Gilman to be some kind of place where bands will go and get famous. If it wasn't for my friends that would have parties in their backyards, there would be no gigs.
We would ask to play anywhere we could. We'll play your garage, we'll play in a backyard. Our friends' older brothers would be throwing a keg party, and we're like, can we play? It's just opportunity to sling your guitar on and make a mess. We played a show up in Willits. This was before Trey was in the band.
I was in the Lookouts, and I booked a show at this party up in the mountains in Mendocino County. The cabin was like not even finished being built, didn't have a roof on it, and after getting the generator going, my band, the Lookouts, played, and Sweet Children played. And Lawrence from the Lookouts was the guy who started Lookout Records.
I thought Lookout was like the best label. They put out these great compilations. I mean, they just kept putting out records that I loved.
We knew Larry was with Lookout Records. We're like, oh, let's go play the show. It'd be really cool to see what he thinks. And we actually had to break a chain, drive up a mountain, and play to like 6 people. We thought it was going to be a big party. We get there, and it was just a bust. But we played, and that's where we met Larry, and immediately he took a liking to us.
Larry saw them, and he says they were playing to those 5 kids like they would play to Shea Stadium. I think he knew something was notably special about Green Day and thought, this is going to be big.